Hello, welcome to My Secret Obsession. I'm Cherish Lively, and today we are talking with D.R. Ransdell. She wrote a book, Dervla Alarms the Nanas. How are you, D.R.?
Oh, I'm fine. I had my swim today, so everything is good.
Good. You're out in Tucson?
Not yet. I'm in Springfield, Illinois, where I'm from, and where
Oh,
my folks are, and where my sister lives. So visiting with them a little bit before I go back to work.
awesome. Very good. I noticed that your book, Dervla,
I know it's a mouthful. Sorry about that.
Dervla Alarms the Nanas, takes place in Tucson, but it actually begins in, New Orleans with Mardi Gras, and I really like Dervla and her sister, and if you could just give us a little bit of information about this book and, what happens, that would be great.
Well, I've written some other murder mysteries. I have a set about a mariachi player because in Tucson I do mariachi. So I thought it would be fun to do a little bit something different. I love to go to New Orleans. I have somebody lives there that I can go visit and be in the French Quarter. So I love all that. So that's how and they have all these voodoo shops and stuff. So that's actually how I wound up starting the book there. But the influences for this book stem from a couple of things. One was when I was in Mexico, 'cause I was teaching English down there. I had a colleague, an American gal who was married to a Mexican guy, and she swore that her husband was using voodoo to make her feel bad. Now, at the time, we were like,
Uh,
Margaret, maybe there's something else going on. But in retrospect, years later, after learning a little bit more about various spiritual healing and not healing things, I wonder. So anyway, that was an influence that it just always stuck with me. That story. This was like 30 years ago, but I
mhm.
was able to use it in the novel. The other thing that was really influential for this novel is that I have a friend who she found out that her stupid husband was seeing someone via
Oh,
Facebook. Okay, so that's how she found out. Just it was terrible. Anyway,
yeah.
she went to go visit her brother. Her brother's married to a very nice Mexican gal, and the Mexican gal's like two aunties live next door. So
Mhm,
my friend knew them very well. My friend went over there and was saying hi to them, and these two little old ladies are like, "Well, where's your husband?" And she explained, "Well, he ran off with somebody." And
yeah.
and they were like, "Hey, qué cabrón! Hey, eso es horrible! Yo no lo puedo creer." Anyway, they just started swearing up a storm, and my friend was
Mhm,
so impressed, and it made her feel so good that here's these two little old ladies, and they're just really ready to kill somebody. And that image stuck with me, and then I knew I wanted to use those
mhm,
characters. I changed them a little bit for the Tucson setting, and also had a couple of other people in mind, and I had a
mhm,
street in mind because right next to the university, there's this big, wide boulevard street, and you see people come and go constantly. That would be a
mhm.
great place for a couple of little old ladies to sit on their porch all day and watch people. So those were a
Right.
couple of the big influences that I started with.
Awesome. Yeah, very good. Because I do like, in the first chapter or the prelude, Dervla is with her sister in New Orleans, and they come across these dolls, and I actually found one that my daughters had bought. Um, it's missing an ear now, but we got these at Busch Gardens, and so it made me think of that, and I was like, "Oh, I've gotta go get that little doll. It's so cute." And in the book, the first chapter, we find out that Dervla's boyfriend, who she's been with for 6 years, decides to just up and leave her, and, I kinda like how she responded. She was like, "Yeah, I'm outta here too," because he thought she was still gonna work for him and, like, be under him, and so I kinda liked her attitude. So, the idea that she might find a voodoo doll and do some things to him is very intriguing, and it was also interesting, like you said, the 2 aunties, we have the nanas who are gonna ask her to maybe help him, and I can imagine how conflicted she would be because, if you've been with someone for 6 years, you love them and you love their family, so you don't want them to, like, go to prison for the rest of their lives, but yet, when somebody drops you like that, you're you're also pretty mad. So, I can understand being like, "Well, let him rot in jail," so, it was kind of fun, so I'm looking forward to that, and for any listeners, I did record the prelude in the first chapter, and they are wonderful. I loved it. I thought it was great, and it's also interesting because I noticed, you have a lot of awards for that book.
Yeah,
Um
it's done really well.
Yeah,
Um,
that's awesome.
I
So
think
do
a couple things, that work in its favor. There's some humor because murder mystery, but I can't take it too seriously. So, and Dervla, she's kind of got an edge. And I'll tell you the truth, when my husband feels like I'm being a little bit mean, he says, "That's Dervla coming out. I can feel that." So anyway, I think that's something that helps it. And then,
Yeah.
paranormal is sort of a weird category, and it just has a touch of paranormal. It's
Mhm.
not like overboard on that. So,
Right.
so I think maybe those are a couple things that work in its favor.
Yeah, it's kinda fun. I like that. And I like it with paranormal sometimes when it almost feels real, where it feels like there's like Stephen King's, there's it's stuff that, you know, you almost feel like it could be, or like the spiritual part that, is there something more to life, that, it's not just people turning into aliens or,
Right.
it's like you feel like, "Oh, there's something maybe with this," you know? And as we learn more in science, even this idea that which sounds crazy is like, are there different levels and different realities? Or it's like, wow, this is like mind-blowing stuff. So it's kind of fun. And so the having that supernatural or the paranormal, I always really enjoy that in books too. So well, thank you so much for sharing with us. And I'm not sure if there's anything else you'd like to tell us or what you're doing next or what's going on with your writing.
I'll tell you what, in fact, just a couple of days ago, I got to release a book called Olive Envy.
Oh,
It's not a murder mystery. It's part of my travel series. So I have 4 novels that are about, well, one or two sisters, depending on the book, traveling. And this one is about Italy. I've had the chance to teach. I'm part Italian. I had the chance to teach for a summer program in Orvieto for several summers. So I'm capitalizing on knowing a lot about what it's like for students, for college students to go to a foreign country and spend 5 weeks there. And it's, a challenge to live in another country. So anyway, that's Olive Envy. And yeah, I have a lot of fun with the locals and with like the
mhm.
local olive shops and stuff like that. So that's what's new right now.
It sounds wonderful. Yeah, my husband and I went to, England and then the Canary Islands, and we love that, and I would love to go to Italy and do the Greek Isles. So that sounds like that must have been a wonderful time for you to be able to go visit,
I
Italy and live in another culture.
It's great, and then it gives me 5 weeks to practice Italian and, working with another language, it's work, you have to keep working at it, so that's a lot of fun for me too.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for coming on, and, if you can send me your links to your sites, and then I'll post them on my site, and hopefully the listeners will be able to find your book and enjoy it just as much as I did. So thank you so much.
You.
Have a great day.
Alright, I will.
Bye-bye.